to Real Talk with Me. This is Jamie Levy speaking, and Real Talk with Me is an unedited podcast. It is real talk. I would love to introduce my guest, Lauren.
Hi, I'm Lauren Pacione, and I'm so excited to be here. I love, 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 love everything about meep and being unedited.
Meep. It's as real as it gets. Well, thank you so much, Lauren, for taking the time to share your love and light with the meep community. I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. You've inspired me to everything that's brought us to this moment, so it just feels like a dream. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm so glad that we can be doing this together.
Yes, and this is a great example of the benefits of technology. And just to recap, MEEP stands for Mindful Empathetic Experiences, Please. And the MEEP mission is to empower people to connect with their inner me. So something that really deeply inspires me is the potential of technology to help bridge that gap to empower ourselves. Mm-hmm. So, Lauren, do you mind sharing a little bit of background about you and your journey?
Sure. Yeah, thank you. So I am working as an ecotherapist and healer. It's been an evolution that probably, like so many of us, it's a journey that I didn't necessarily see coming. So it all transitioned out of a lot of pain, a lot of confusion, a lot of being very disconnected from what I consider my true self. And I've been on a journey for over 15 years now, working in this way to connecting with that piece of myself, and professionally for the last 12 plus years. To do the math. Actually, it's more than that. Time flies. Wow. So since 2005. So we're at 15 years now. And I guess my personal journey is a bit longer. But it's one to reconnect people back to their true self, and getting to do that through the platform of ecotherapy, which is an opportunity that kind of bridges this gap between deep ecology, psychotherapy, our agricultural system, our cultural system, what we experience as gender, society, climate change, and it brings it all together, really understanding that we are not separate from the universe and the world that's around us. So it's perfect to have this me and meep conversation, because from my role and what I do with work is to connect people back to their true selves, knowing that that's also not separate from connecting to the entire world. So
chills.
Yeah, it's a good thing. I love also that the use of technology can be one to bridge what is maybe really missing right now in this world, right? Like so many of us are craving connection, and I think that one of the things that technology offers is community, and not just community, but community in ways of people that we may not have ever been connected with. They might not be people who are in our local community or that we even would have gone to school with. And so I think in that way, technology can be really useful in bringing everyone together and bringing people together who have pockets of like-minded interests. So when people are working with things and following people like you who are highlighting empathy and experiences that unite people and experiences that bring people back to themselves, then they get to meet other people who are also seeking that. And I just love that about you and what you encourage. And I find a similarity and a hope for the way that I use technology in my life too, in that way.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm so grateful for how you've used technology to bring communities together, and attending your events and even going to Joshua Tree on the retreat. It demonstrates how that comes to life.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Yeah. And you've been in my online classes and courses also, which you're such a value to be there, and thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I find that that's a really great way that we can all also connect, like doing things like that where, again, we're all looking to grow in a particular way, whether it is in something like ecotherapy or learning to have more empathy and more mindful experiences, or something like learning to build a motorcycle or embroider, right? That we can connect with our people and find those who are on a similar path. And then that's how we can all light each other up and find our way back to our purpose, right? So,
absolutely.
yeah.
And everyone's unique journey is just that. So whatever lights up your soul, empowering yourself to use technology as a tool to experience all of it, which is so special. Do you mind sharing a little bit about your online course and how that's an example of positive technology?
Sure. So I would say that the thing that I love most about the online course, and this kind of skips beyond the content or the what's offered, because the content is rolling and it's this online mentorship, which we lovingly collectively refer to as a garden, because we're there to help one another grow, and it has seasons and it's very much alive. What I love though the most about it is that we connect virtually and visibly in many cases with one another. And so the class is offered live. It's on a monthly schedule. And the best part is getting to see people in a way that really services them. So what I mean by that is, like, sometimes we just need to curl up and be in bed with our dog or our cat or our goldfish. I don't think fish go in your bed, but whatever pet you have at home, right? And or your embroidery, right? And like, you need to sit in bed and be cozy and have just that time to unwind for yourself. And then other times we're, experiencing, there's been people on our class who have long commutes and have been in the car for long stretches of time, or are traveling from one city to another, and they're in the car for a long stretch of time, but can have connection with other people in a way that's really meaningful and that is of value and of education and connects them back to themselves. So I love the most that we get to see one another, and that's probably one of the highlights of technology as a whole for me. It's not related, but if I can share,
please.
It's not related to the courses. However, at my grandmother's 90th birthday, she's now 96, I got her an iPad, and we taught her how to FaceTime. And I, at the time, wasn't pregnant with Aspen yet. I actually would have discussed, I was pregnant. I didn't know I was pregnant at the time. And so it was a really beautiful experience to be able to FaceTime with my 90-year-old grandmother, and she got to watch her, I'm her only granddaughter, so she got to watch her granddaughter and connect. And so she lives in Massachusetts and we're here in New York, and to this day she's 96, and the universe has blessed us with her, and we still FaceTime all the time. In fact, it's probably close to the time that, in case we get an interruption, Grandma Nona might be calling to FaceTime with us. So it's lovely, and that's one of my favorite things about technology also.
That's so special.
Yeah.
I love it. It's such a great way to build those relationships despite where you are.
Yes, very much so. Yeah, and get to see one another, right? Like I think some of the other side of the sword with technology is, of course, the polarity, right? Like the disconnection and the instant availability yet not actually available. Like we text someone, we're all used to it, and I know I've made this kind of mindless action more than a few times, where I just, I'm texting someone, I'm waiting for an answer, yet I'm not really available to answer the phone. And as maybe that was convenient 15, 20 years ago when text message kind of first came about, now it's become this pressure. I feel that it's a pressure and an expectation on other people, and an expectation on ourselves by others and of ourselves to be available all the time, yet not actually available, not present. So I love that, the opportunity to be able to see someone in their face and their smile, and you can sense more of their energy, and to be able to connect with them in that way over the phone without needing to, let's say, be available for 30 minutes for lunch or an hour, or able to drive 5.5 hours or get on a plane, is also a really great way to counteract that same or that opposite expression, right? So it creates a little bit of harmony in the use of technology.
Absolutely. And the facial expressions and body language is so key with FaceTime, and that's a benefit of it. What you touched upon with the texting and the urgency, that's an ongoing challenge that we're facing. And ideally, that's a muscle that we can be flexing and growing and, getting stronger as we go. However, it's a challenge every time. So in your personal practice, what are things that you tell yourself in your inner dialogue to be okay by putting the phone away?
So that's a good one. Honestly, it fluctuates depending on the time of day. So I'm more readily accepting of not being available on my phone early in the morning. I personally have had an early morning practice, or a sadhana, we might call it, in the dark hours of the day. I feel like it's a really magical time to be present with myself. That's when I connect to my soul and my spirit and the spirit of the world, and I clear my head and I really ground myself and prepare to step into my heart as best I can for the day. So during those times, it's much easier to be present. And there's been times where I have temptation to check an email or pop on Instagram, or just to get something out of the way, which parlays into however many hours later. So the dialogue in my head is usually to remind myself of the benefit, not so much against technology, but the benefit of connecting with myself. And I try really hard not to kind of make it like a me or that. And where can I simply connect with myself first, so that when I'm connecting on technology or in email or working through business or with a client, that I've already sort of proverbially given myself the oxygen mask first, The times where I do struggle with it, so specific times that I'm thinking of are with my 5-year-old. Sometimes it's challenging not to be available on the phone. Specifically, let's say 2 weeks ago, there was a parent-teacher conference day, so it wasn't like a bank holiday. And for all intents and purposes, I was, quote, available per societal expectations. And yet I wasn't. I had 2 days in a row where I was full-time as a mom. And even prior to that, I was homeschooling her and working on either end of the day with my clients. So having daylight hours to accomplish some of the tasks that are also aligned with my purpose, yet not be sort of enslaved to my phone, was a bit of a challenge. And I find that there are some things that I've done that have helped me. The easiest for me personally is to leave my phone in the other room.
Yes.
Or to put my phone on airplane mode. And usually I will, during those times, reach out to whoever the, quote, emergency contacts are, and just say, we're stepping into something for a bit, and I'll check back. And I find that for me, when it's out of sight, out of mind, that's much easier. It does take some practice, though, to get there, and I can also attest to times where I've been very tempted to go check my phone in the other room or something like that. So yeah, I find it as harmony, right? I can't multitask with my phone, and that's where I find that I'm really not able to be present both on my phone and with whomever I'm connecting with. And on the converse of that, I'm fully immersed in, whether it's the computer or my phone or whatever else, and I'm not multitasking with anything else at that time. Also, I try not to eat and be on the computer. I try not to listen to another podcast or a book while I'm working on the computer. I will listen to music, but everything is kind of as present as I can make it. Yeah, if that makes sense.
I feel all of it, and it's an ongoing practice. So knowing what our inner me is asking for and being okay with it and saying, no, the phone's in the other room. I know you're tempted to look, but let's take a second and look deeper at that. Why do I want to grab my phone right now?
Right.
There's a great acronym, HALT. Are you hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? The loneliness with the phone is a big one. And searching for that validation is a constant practice.
Sure.
Something that you mentioned about multitasking as part of my practice of doing one thing at a time, I'm quickly learning that multitasking is just quick task switching. So trying to be present in the moment of that one task. Like just do it. And then move on to the next one.
Right.
Which is so challenging.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, the constant mindful technology practice is going to be growing and evolving as technology is evolving. So it's important that we have fundamental roots within ourselves and that we're grounded in who we are as our unique people. And I admire what you were sharing about your morning practice and how that's your me time. How do you suggest inspiring other people to carve out that me time for themselves, especially when we are all so busy and don't have time?
Busy. You guys, Jamie's air quoting busy right now, just because it's the truth. It's really the truth. Yeah, I think that, so kind of the first, the foundation to having me time is learning to become more comfortable with who we are, right? And with that is a process. So I think that we're just, again, probably likely the influence of technology. We are so used to instant gratification and instantaneous change to things. And that's not how we evolve as humans. That's not how nature evolves. I mean, we've had some really crazy seasonal shifts going on here in New York, right? Like Powerball numbers worth of temperature. However, that's not naturally how the seasons shift, right? It goes summer and autumn and then winter. And I think that we need to be really aware within ourselves that our me time will evolve, not only evolving from maybe someone who is not prioritizing me time to creating that space, which takes patience and practice, and I would say a really healthy dose of curiosity. So a lot of us don't know what me time looks like, how to, quote, fill that me time, because I think that's the first way like the brain goes. It's a really big step to go from no me time to me time in silence and contemplation. So how do you start to fill that me time with things that are valuable and helping us to feel more fulfilled within ourselves? And I think that comes with just a tremendous amount of, like I said, curiosity and some practice, trying new things over and over, and allowing that to shift also. Sometimes we might have equated me time with, let's say, a walk or a run outside, and that might be one version of me time for 5, 10, 15 years. And then one day maybe that starts to evolve and we get more curious about what it might be if I just stopped and contemplated on my walk or run for a few minutes. And well, maybe that opens up a door of curiosity. You know, I've kind of heard about this meditation thing that everyone's doing, and maybe I check out a yoga class and then a meditation class and then start to read some books, and then there's journaling, and then there's morning quiet time. So I think it has an evolution, and no matter where we are with our personal practice, it's really exciting and rewarding to be curious and be a student first and foremost with our own reaction and our own emotions with things, like you said, just kind of the way that we're figuring it out. Yeah.
I love it. And
Yeah.
it's such a process and evolving practice. And
Mm-hmm.
everyone has their own unique definition of me time.
Yeah.
So being really open and curious, but also accepting of our inner me. So it's okay if one day it's a walk and another
Mm-hmm.
day it's a yoga class or something completely different that you haven't figured out yet.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I also think to start really small. So this came to mind that when I was a new mom and at home, I didn't have a car. So I moved from Brooklyn to Long Island. I didn't have a car yet. My family is not local. And I was a new mom feeling all the new mom feels and really quite kind of cooped up some days. And I took a ton of walks and I was out in nature a lot. However, I was experiencing this feeling that probably a lot of new moms get as just, I was constantly with my daughter Aspen and nursing and feeding and changing and putting to bed. And so that me time where I had such a practice already for quite some time, that practice shifted for me. And it became things that looked like literally 3 minutes in the bathroom that I'm going to get really real. This is real unedited
Real
talk,
talk
right?
with me.
Okay. Like 3 minutes in the bathroom that even if I was around family, no one's going to question like if I was going to take a poop. And so I would take 3 minutes in the bathroom by myself. And sometimes it was just sitting quietly on the floor. Sometimes I had to bring in some sort of music with me. So technology, but done so in a really mindful way. Or it might be like running the water and letting some cool water pour onto my wrists and just kind of like splashing that onto my face or breathing in some oil. It was just 3 minutes. 3 minutes, that's all. And for a long time, and I share this a lot with clients also, my meditation practice, I meditate every single day, and probably until about last year now, it's gotten more so and more consistent, but every day it was just 3 minutes. And it sounds like it's a lot if you express, well, I meditate every single day for 8 years, but it's 3 minutes a day. It's 3 minutes. I mean, in the scheme of meditation, you're just really sitting. However, to do that and to breathe and take 20 really deep, full breaths in and out, that heals us. It lets us release everything from the day before. It lets us release some of that expectation and pressure on ourselves and sets us up. And I feel like we can all grab 3 minutes no matter how busy we are. We're not too busy to use the bathroom. When you have to go, you have to go. Your boss won't question if you walked away from 3 minutes, for 3 minutes. You can steal that time at any time during the day. So I think putting it in really accessible ways, really practical ways, and into these small digestible portions. So yeah, that's something that I feel like is really helpful. I've shared that with a lot of clients, and it's something that anyone can adopt. Nowadays, that practice also for me, which is another way just to connect, and again, in the context of weaving in ecotherapy to our time, is to go out and ground ourselves, just like connect our bare feet into Mother Nature. And I know that might not be accessible for every person, and there's plenty of options for grounding mats and things like that. But for those of us who have the beautiful access to grass or beach, to be able to step outside every morning, and that kind of also sets my day. I have a dog. I walk her at 5:55 every morning. And I go outside and I step my feet in the grass, and it's, maybe a minute, maybe 3, but really powerful, deep breaths. And again, something accessible and that we can do. You can do that with your kids, pushing them on a swing, so.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
So when you're earthing, is that bare feet?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah, bare feet all year round. So that includes being in the snow or the ice and the rain, and it just brings us back to really being able to sense our world around us. I know that this is something that you and I have discussed a little bit in terms of technology desensitizing us, right? It's kind of this paradoxical experience to be in. We are completely overstimulated, and because we are so overstimulated, nothing stimulates us. And we've become numb to our senses and to the world around us at large. And so having a practice, again, keeping it simple and just being curious about it, stepping outside. And it's not that the snow doesn't feel cold, but just observing what our reaction is, right? Like stepping outside and being like, I kind of want to curl my toes and wince and close off to my body right now. What if I just took a really deep breath instead? What if I just spread everything out and all that tension and anxiety and press that into the world? Like, what if I took one more breath after that, and maybe another and another, and then how can that translate into my day when calls come towards me or things trigger me or whatever else might happen when my body wants to have that same visceral reaction of wincing and getting small and closing off to that? How can I remember that, right? It's like creating a blueprint for our body. How can I remember that while I stood outside this morning in 28-degree weather and I was okay? Maybe I could take a deep breath through this too. So I think that that allows us, again, just to translate into our everyday world and reconnect us back to those senses that we might be missing, you know?
Wow, so beautiful. That is certainly a meep challenge, to connect with our senses and go beyond that discomfort, because it's when we cross that threshold by just taking a breath and getting grounded that's so special. Yeah, I love it. Thank you so much. In regards to what you were sharing about earthing and the changing of seasons and how we are evolving with our inner me, how does this all connect to ecotherapy?
So the practice of ecotherapy, as we were sharing earlier, reconnects you back to the world at large, where maybe traditional psychotherapy, and this does not mean it's every therapist or every modality of psychotherapy, but traditionally psychotherapy would focus on the person, so yourself, your intrapersonal relationship, your relationship with yourself, and your interpersonal relationships of your immediate circle. So let's say traditionally you might have a conversation that involves yourself, maybe your job, maybe your friends, maybe your family. Ecotherapy sort of takes that sphere, and if you could imagine dropping a stone into a lake, lets that ripple all the way out with the acknowledgement that that ripple effect from the stone isn't just where the stone sank into the bottom of the lake and into the sand or the immediate ripples, but that somehow has influence upon the entire current of the entire lake and the ecosystem that goes beyond that lake. So that might influence the fish that are in the lake. That might influence the creatures that are on the edge of the lake, the way that the sand is formed. And so it's looking at us as an individual as this drop, and we're not insignificant. We are actually incredibly needed and valuable, and we have great effect on the world around us. So we're seen as a part of a web of life. And that conversation that might conventionally have included you and your family would also include you, your family, your community that's a little bit larger than you, the way that whom you're identifying with is involved, whether that is also maybe a part of a religion or a race or a sexual identity or a gender identity, and all of the pain and all of the hope that comes along with that. And we're seeing so much of this in the world right now, and how that even goes out beyond that sphere into climate change and agriculture, the food that you're eating, the way that you're participating in your conscious buying and your conscious consumption in the world, and then the world at large as a whole. What is your contribution, your purpose, and your soul's responsibility? So there's a heavy influence on both your spirituality as a person and an individual, but your spirituality in contribution to the all, capital A. And that is a really beautiful message that we can take in considering our me time, right? That like when we take time for ourselves and when we really make time for ourselves, we're also making time for the world. And I believe that as we heal ourselves and as we connect to our heart, we're helping to heal the planet, and we are healing the hearts of all human beings, both living and in the past and to come. And I think that that is the most beautiful aspect of ecotherapy. It really helps you to understand that you're in existence for a reason and that you have something great to contribute to the world, and the world needs you here. I think if we all knew that and then wove in the things that we do every single day with that understanding, the world would be a much more magical place. And I'm hopeful that we're getting there with things like Meep and experiences that really tie us in, and encouragement for people to be curious about that.
Wow. I have chills. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And I wish that everyone internally felt their impact. And a question that I'm posing to the world, how can we all connect to our power and really feel that impact we have? Because we all, capital A.
Yeah, it's a big question. Yeah, and I think, like we were saying earlier, one that requires a lot of self-patience and self-compassion to understand that. It is a journey, you know.
Yeah. It's a journey unique for everyone, and I'm so inspired by the potential if everyone is aware of their power and connected to their inner me and realizes that it is a web. We're all connected, and that you matter and you belong.
So much so. How do you feel connected?
I feel connected to everything on an energetic level, which is interesting to articulate. However, especially being outside when you feel the wind and everything, like our energy field is all connected. So I try to empower myself to stay connected by going outside of my comfort zone and talking to people and those little things. However, I'm certainly new on this journey and am inspired to continue connecting. Do you have any advice?
Well, I mean, you're on a beautiful path of growth, and I think, like you said, of connecting to nature, connecting to people, and being curious. You're beautifully curious. And I think that those are the things that are those are the timeless pieces that if we can all hold on to that, quote, young, old, in age or in journey, to stay curious and to continue to lean in and ask questions and open up to new experiences. And you know, what I think one of the things that sticks out the most with Meep is empathy. Just empathy is so needed. It is an undervalued aspect, and in all places in the world, in leadership, with children, with ourselves. And I see that deeply in you, and I love that you encourage that in others. When you mentioned energy, funny enough, I thought of, like, how would you express energy to somebody who is so, quote, disconnected from the awareness of their own energy? And I thought of the internet. Like, how does Google know everything? And how do we connect from one website to the next? And in its own way, that is energy shown in a technological format. However that came about, because that energy and that thought and that design was in the ethos, a collective ethos, right? Like, several people started developing the internet at one time, and it wasn't just Microsoft or Steve Jobs, and like there's a couple big names, but a bunch of people were tapped into that. Just like there are so many similar websites or similar searches that come about, and like, how does it know what you really want? It's following an algorithm. And I think that our energy is patterns and algorithms, and that's why when we get curious about changing whatever that pattern might be, it's like we've just kind of coded or keyed something in differently. I don't know how to build the internet, but however they do that, like you just typed in a different set of instructions, and you know, that might be the difference between, let's say, like hitting the snooze button in the morning versus going outside and taking 2 very uncomfortable breaths in the snow, or maybe 2 more comfortable breaths in the summer. And that's when you try it. But it's different than the snooze button. You've reprogrammed something. So I love that you're bridging both of these worlds, which, by the way, is a prophecy, a shamanic prophecy, and a prophecy from long ago, that this east-west, north-south, these polarities would come together and eventually help bring the world back into harmony. Of course, there's a lot of polarity on the way, like trying to mix music or something. It doesn't quite go together at first, but this is a polarity that is to be joined together for the greater good of humanity. So it's cool.
That is so beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So well said. I feel like we need to end it there because it's just so beautiful. And I just appreciate you so much for sharing your journey. And the last part at the end is like my goal for life. And I think if we are striving for that and reprogramming our inner me to see our impact in the web of life, that's magical.
Yeah.
So special. So if someone's interested in learning more about your magical work, where can they find you?
So I'm on Instagram at laurenpacione.etc, which sounds like etc. and is. It's also for ecotherapy counseling. I do one-on-one counseling, mentorships, online classes, and retreats. Our next retreat is to Peru in October, and all of the information can be found both on Instagram and on my website, which is Lauren Pacione, and it's LaurenPacio, N as in Nancy, E. Maybe N as in nature. I think I'm going to change that. N as in nature, E as in environment. So PACIO, N as in nature, E as in environment.com, or on Instagram.etc.
Wow. I appreciate and admire you so much. Thank you for sharing your love and light with the Meep community.
Meep.
Meep out.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.